Okay, let me start over. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our what's expected to be a very interesting conversation on consensus of crime in Jamaica. I want to just use this opportunity just to say hi to everyone, but I do need to call a few out, and I'm going to start from my left. Donovan Longmore, thank you so much for being on. Donovan is actually the state rep for Connecticut, and then he has his own radio show that he does on Saturday, so you might want to check it out. I think he can post information in the chat just to get people to come along. Dr.
Thank you.
Grant,
Thank
I'll
you.
come back to you later because you are one of the speaker of tonight. We have Reverend Nielsen next. Hi, Reverend Nielsen. For those of you who know, faith is a major part of the diaspora, so we do have a diaspora sector lead, and that will be none other than Reverend Christopher Nielsen. We have Stafford Grant, who is my co-host tonight, and Stafford needs no introduction because he has done so much to the community over the years, both here and in Jamaica. Mr. Distant, I'll come back to you because you're one of the panelists tonight. Welcome. Chris, let me see. Ashley. Hi, Ashley. Are you in the dark? Is that my Ashley? Let me see if that's the right Ashley I'm thinking of. Maybe not. Dr. Dwayne Dice, thank you so much for coming on. He has a great educational program. You might want to check him out. You can put his information in the chat as well. Then next we have Barbara Wilson, who is a state rep for Pennsylvania. I want to welcome her, and she also does CapFest here in Philadelphia. Maureen McFarlane also has her show, and so we just want to say welcome to who is here. And as I go in the forum, as I see people who have constantly supported us and who have been here with us, I will definitely. Hi, I'm on, but just listening. Okay, Ashley, that's fine. And that's Ashley that works so hard on our flyers and don't do all the paperwork. So we want to just thank Ashley for coming on tonight. So as I said, we have a faith sector, and so we always open with prayer. And so, as usual, we're going to have Reverend Nielsen say a word, and then we will get into why we are here tonight to discuss crime. Go ahead, Reverend Nielsen, please.
Let us pray. Almighty God, our Lord, the ground of our being, the source of our existence and all that is good, we give you thanks this evening. We thank you for your faithfulness and your mercy and your grace and your love and your loving kindness. They are better, they are the best. We thank you for your presence with us as we come together once more. A testimony that you have watched over us while we have been absent and you have brought us together. We ask as we come together that you will guide us. Guide us, great Jehovah. Guide us in our thoughts. Guide us in our temperament and our attitudes. Guide us in our words, so that everything that we discuss will be according to you, according to your will, and will glorify you. As we discuss justice, that we'll discuss that which is along with righteousness. Justice that not only is punitive, but restorative. Justice that is whole. Justice that lifts us all, and justice that glorifies your name. We thank you for the opportunity. We thank you for the call. We thank you for the responsibility. And we thank you for what you have already done, are doing even now, and will do. For these we're grateful as we ask them according to your will, in and through your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray.
FM mode.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we're running a little bit behind schedule, but le- let us just get into it. And so one of our first panelists tonight will be none other than Lloyd W. Distant Jr. And Lloyd Distant is a past president of Jamaica Chamber of Commerce. He's also co-chair for the Consensus Monitoring and Oversight Committee. Lloyd has been an active chamber leader for almost 2 decades, a period during which he held chairmanship for several of his committees, including the Chamber's Competitiveness Committee, which oversees the Jamaica Conference Board, publisher of the Business and Consumer Confidence Indices, Legislation and Regulation, Energy and Economics, and Taxation Committees. Excuse me. Lloyd is an accomplished business leader with a strong finance and technology background, coupled with over 3 decades of demonstrated leadership in driving sales and profits for industry-leading companies. In his career, he has consistently generated significant revenue growth by developing and implementing innovative sales and marketing strategies, both domestically and internationally. As an entrepreneur, Lloyd has been involved in several local startups and has a reputation for turning around flat performances and mentoring top talent. He's also an active community leader, having held high impact roles in a number of civic organizations and has the distinction of being a justice of the peace for the parish of St. Andrew, Jamaica. Lloyd's broad business experience spanning startups, SMEs, and large corporates, coupled with his wide-ranging and acknowledged contribution to the chamber, as well as his exhibit civic leadership, resulted in the chamber's membership electing him as its president from 2018 to 2021. In the late 2019, Lloyd was selected to lead the development of a national consensus on crime, an effort that had thwarted several leaders over the previous 20 plus years. As a product of that consensus, the Consensus 2020 Crime Monitoring and Oversight Committee was formed as an independent body bringing together non-partisan stakeholders from the private sector, civil society, academia, and political directorate. The CMOC provides an independent overview of the efficacy and efficiency of the programs agreed through the process of national consensus and is pledged to keep the public engaged in the progress of the reduction in crime, corruption, and violence. Please help me welcome Lloyd Distant, one of our panelists for tonight. Lloyd, welcome.
Thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Dr. Grant. Good afternoon, Stafford, as well. We hadn't discussed this yesterday, but I'm going to throw up a few slides, if you don't mind. Hopefully, it will help me to provide context. And I know some people are visual, some people are oral, so hopefully the visibility of a few slides will help in my sharing. And let me also start by saying I do need to ensure that they update the introduction, because that introduction really speaks a lot about my context and history from a professional standpoint, less so about the role I'm playing in the course of this conversation. So again, thank you, Michelle, for providing that some insights into why I'm here and talking this evening. So friends, I thought I'd start off by ensuring everyone has there's some familiarity with the national consensus on crime. So I'm not going to read from the slides. I can share this with you, Michelle, offline. There's a version of it that you already have. This is an updated version I can share with yourself and Stafford to share with others post this session. So the national consensus, I think, as we all know, one of the big major challenges Jamaica has had over several decades, certainly over the last 4 decades, has been crime. None of our political leaders have been able to engage or ensure a reduction in crime or ensure a sustainable reduction in crime. we've seen, as Commissioner shared with us in 2018, we've seen the ups and downs. We've seen, the Special Anti-Crime Task Force, Operation Kingfish. We've seen those special programs take place that have seen a reduction, but invariably crime has gone back up at some point in time, and we've not seen a sustainable reduction. Part of what we recognize is that as a society, we don't all come together to fight crime. And whether it is partisan, whether it's individual positioning on what we think is right, we don't come together. The criminals are doing their thing, and we see the criminals coming together, but as a society, we have not done that. So in 2018, 2019, Howard Mitchell started this conversation in the National Partnership Council to get those members of the Partnership Council into a consensus and bringing the political directorate into it, with some very clear defining guardrails around what this consensus looks like. So it's a consensus. We don't expect everybody to agree on everything that needs to be in there, but at least let us identify some things that we all agree are important, and let's take that out of the debate. Let's not have, the government or opposition, private sector, the unions be debating certain points when it comes to crime. What we also recognize as we were going through this discussion, a working group was formed very early in the process, which included the Minister of National Security, the opposition spokesperson of national security, and three of our most erstwhile academics. And I do them a disservice to call them academics, whilst they're from the university, or they are academics in their own right. An epidemiologist, a criminologist, and a social anthropologist would have been brought to the table. These are people who are actually in the field and knew what was taking place in Jamaica. And the process that we did in developing the consensus was to say, let's not guess at what is necessary. Let us look at some very specific programs. Let's use empirical data-driven information. Let us ensure that we have a broad engagement of society in terms of understanding what the issues were and what is important, what is most important for us to get that sustainable reduction in crime. So inclusive, facilitative, but very much a targeted and coordinated set of items that we can hold ourselves as well as the political directorate accountable to delivering. So that's the context of the consensus. We identified in doing that, and that first sentence where it says sustainable reduction was very important for us all to agree. There are obviously several things, and whether it's a state of emergency or whatever it is, there are things we can do to get a rapid reduction, but can we make it sustainable in a way that everyone agrees recognizes human rights, but is right for Jamaica as well. So there are deep-rooted problems that span several administrations. Again, 40 years getting here, it's not going to be solved in 5 years. So we need to ensure, regardless of who makes up the government, that we're going to remain on track to doing these the items that are agreed. There are controversial issues that invariably arise. The government may take one position, the opposition may take a different position on the matter. How do we get beyond that? Or in some instances, it may be a very unpopular decision that needs to be taken by government that we know there's political risk. So how do we take the political risk out of making some of these decisions? And so, large as we went through the process, we would have engaged in developing the consensus somewhere in the region initially of about 70 different organizations across the country, just to hear everybody's views and to ensure that as we're developing the agreements in the consensus, that there's an alignment that these things were the most important things to focus on initially. We recognized that the fractiousness that has been our country for a long time, and whether it is political fractiousness or just civic fraction, the fraction that exists from the private sector and the unions or other members of civil society not agreeing on a particular path, that has held us back. So let us speak as one, let us get together. And these quotes, both the one from Nelson Mandela, it's very pointed around the fact that it's not just our generation. We speak about that next generation that we've got to ensure that we have a country that's governed by rule of law. We need to ensure that is there. But if we're going to drive political action or action from our political representatives, we all need to speak as one. There are 4 key principles that we identified in developing it. Our biggest challenge really was the criminal gangs. What everyone speaks about is the homicide rate. Close to 78% of our homicides at the time we did this were gang on gang. Another 9% of those were domestic violence related murders. So the big chunk of it were gang on gang violence. So we needed to eliminate the criminal gangs. But whilst we're doing that, we know that we have challenged communities, either what's called garrison communities or squatter communities that we know we need to reintegrate. Well, they're part of society. We need to help to lift them up so they are able to sustain themselves as individual communities. A major challenge was recognized in corruption and money laundering. We needed to address that. And of course, there's better planning and policing and justice as well, which the 4th item is where we'll focus on a little later on as we're going through. So the consensus, again, just key, there are 39 action items which came out of the initial consensus. We identified 8 pillars. There are 7 pillars here. We identified an 8th pillar later on called victimization. Several action items, so milestone timelines for things to be done. Because, again, one of the things that we have found is not that we have a lack of information. What we don't have is execution and implementation of a lot of these studies that have taken place over time. So social, community, and cultural transformation, ultimately, if it's going to be sustainable, we need to be engaged with each other as Jamaicans in a very different way. We need to have respect for rule of law, an appreciation of what we call civics, our rights as citizens and our responsibilities as citizens. So social, community, and cultural transformation being the most important pillar for sustainable reduction. But going beyond that, we have what is called the criminal justice ecosystem. So that is the legislations that are necessary to support the constabulary force and the justice system in doing their job. So legislations, having a fit for purpose police force, that's the transformation of the constabulary force, having a modern justice system, again, huge backlog. How do we reduce that backlog and use technology to ensure there's visibility and transparency? And of course, correctional services. How are we rehabilitating those persons who go into our prisons? So that covers about 4 pillars within themselves, the criminal justice ecosystem. But as we get beyond that, this issue of accountability and corruption comes out. And we need to improve accountability and take anti-corruption measures, Proceeds of Crime Act, amongst others. And then what we call, separate from the community and cultural transformation, there's a key item about community renewal and urban planning. So again, many of the gangs have come out of what we call squatter or informal communities. How do we transition those communities and again, reintegrate them into society? So in a nutshell, that's the National Consensus on Crime. We signed that in August of 2020. Earlier this year, in June of 2024, we signed an updated consensus, a new consensus. Out of the original consensus, I said about 39 items, about 50% of them have been delivered and another 50% have not been achieved. But at least for the first time, we know that together we are achieving something, we're getting progress. So that was certainly a good positive for the stakeholders, the signatory stakeholders to the national consensus. But getting beyond understanding what we have achieved and what we still need to do, in 2024, we spoke about updating the consensus. And just a couple more slides to go before I get into the meat of it. And largely it was around, the original consensus was about long-term measures. But of course, as Jamaicans, most of us focus on the fact that the homicide rates. So if you're not doing something to reduce homicide rates very quickly, many Jamaicans don't think that anything is happening. So we had to sort of pivot keep a focus on the long-term, medium and long-term initiatives, but also begin to speak about what are the things that can be done right now to get a rapid reduction in homicides. Beyond that, what we recognize, and you have seen it in score, about 50% delivered. There's still several items that were unachieved from the original consensus. And again, maybe we're too ambitious, but we need to put those things back on the table because they're important. Let's agree new milestone deliverables associated with those items. But there's some items that were delivered in the original consensus that we need to take the next step on. So one of the items that was huge was a Public Bodies and Management Accountability Act, how public boards operate. We had to get beyond just ensuring the act is in place to saying, okay, now that we have an act, how many of the boards that we have transitioned to operating under the new act? So again, it's about that continuous progress of taking the steps to ensuring that the deliverables that we agreed in the consensus are actually delivering an impact to Jamaica in terms of crime reduction as well. And the third area, of course, is that we've not done as good a job as we would have liked around engaging all of Jamaica on this process. So in the discussions, Michelle and Stafford had spoken about a focus on the JCF transformation. Again, not going to speak through it all. There were 8 items specifically identified in the initial consensus. And we recognize a holistic approach, which was corruption in the force. And certainly when we spoke about it in 2018, 2019, the perception of corruption and the corruption was a major issue. So we had to ensure that there's a construct and a framework around reducing the corruption that existed in the force, either identifying it and removing it, or ensuring it doesn't grow. Ensuring the constabulary force has the tools and resources necessary, ensuring accountability in the leadership, and driving towards policing with the community. And colleagues, what I'll share with you, again, as somewhat of a neophyte when I started on this process, when we reviewed it in 2018, there were 3 in-depth studies that were done on the transformation of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. One in 2005, 2015, and 2018. The difference between the 2005 study and the 2018 study was minuscule, about a 5% difference. So what it has said to us is that, look, 13 years, let's call it 15 years, what we needed to do, we knew that 15 years ago, we just had not implemented it. And so the focus of Commissioner Anderson at the time and Commissioner Blake, who owned this deliverable, was around ensuring a project management construct was in place to drive the implementation of transformation in the constabulary force. So I just wanted to use 2 slides to summarize very quickly sort of where we started from and where we are. The inspectorate, what's called IPROBE, that's the professional standards branch of the constabulary force. They brought in a new leader, new organization structure. We started getting reports from them, providing some visibility on the kind of interdictions that were taking place. And whilst we heard a lot in the media about other bodies that were overseeing the police force, what was very clear is that our own internal audit, which is IPROBE, our own internal audit, had actually moved from the perception we would have had 10 years ago is no longer the perception. We have good professional leadership. They have the framework, they have the tools, and for the most part, they have the capacity to do their own internal investigations and to take the steps necessary to reduce or remove persons who are acting unprofessionally within the force. So we look at it, checking the box, still work to be done, but at least they have progress, and we've seen steps taken in the right direction in terms of the integrity we are looking for within the constabulary force. There's a piece of legislation that was discussed at the time of the signing, which was an integrity of the security forces legislation. In discussion with the minister, we agreed to deprioritize it at the time, based on the work that was being done both in the inspectorate and in MOCA, that's the major organized crime agency. our FBI in Jamaica, in terms of the independence that MOCA has and the legislations that enable them to do things. And we said, let's focus on MOCA's legislations and the work of iProbe instead of getting new legislation in place. The Police Services Commission and the Police Civilian Oversight Authority, two different bodies. Yeah, so resources are split. There's a competition, I shouldn't say there's competition, but the resources are split. What was envisioned at the time and continues to be envisioned by the government is that those two bodies need to be merged, but there's been very little progress in that regard. A major area to speak about was the headcount strength. At the time of the initial consensus signing, the police, we had 11,000 members of the police force. A mathematical body was developed, and that said, based on the volume of crime, based on the distribution, based on the kinds of challenges we had, we probably needed about 18,800 officers. So understand that that's a huge jump from 11,000. So 14,000 had been approved from maybe about 8 years before. We couldn't even get to 14,000. So getting to 18,000 from both a logistics standpoint as well as a financial standpoint, because budgets had to be adjusted, was just a far cry to go. So we recognized at the time, let us at least get to 14,000. 14,200, that was the headcount strength that was budgeted for. And it took 3 years, but I'm pleased to say, notwithstanding COVID, it took us 4 years actually, notwithstanding COVID and the challenges of reduced recruitment and training, the new deadline date that was set for 2023, for March 2023 was achieved, and we hit the number of 14,700. So, again, good check in the box. Pleased to see that we've gotten to that number. And, by all indications, a huge part of why we're seeing this reduction in crime over the last several months, in the last year and a half at least, has been because we have more feet on the street, the ability to use technology and a lot of the data that is coming in from modern informatics and other institutions. The operations of the police have enabled them to use the 14,000 way more effectively than the 11,000 we had before. Another huge area was always around the training of our force. I don't know if any of you were in Jamaica last year when we had an expo. The police force, the JCF, put on an expo focused on showing to Jamaica that the team that existed were very professional, they're focused on quality, and they were using technology. And I would have to say, everyone that attended that, the feedback I got from all the persons I know who attended the expo is that, I just didn't know the JCF had all of this capacity. I didn't know the people were this good. And it was very clear that the training support that we had gotten from our overseas partners, whether it be the United States or Canada or the UK or the EU, certainly had helped our JCF move from up to being a much more professional force. So a number of things that they've done in terms of how promotions are taking place, the kind of training that takes place and how that is reinforced actually came through that process over the first 2 or 3 years and is ongoing. The other set of priorities, so the JCF transformation had 5 pillars. The first pillar was around people, which I mostly spoke about in the first slide. The other 4 areas were structure, and we have the organization structure of the force has really changed. Force development and logistics is what has ensured, this FDNL, sorry, is force development and logistics, which has ensured the implementation of the programs and that the budget is available, have been implemented throughout the force. A welfare division has been created, focused on the welfare of the officers. We know both mental and financial, and this ongoing support is necessary. Utilization of technology, PSTEB, how we operate on the roads. So this will be about the traffic enforcement branch and of course, public engagement generally. iProbe I spoke about before, which is our inspectorate. a legal team, and that has gone. I met with the DPP about a month ago, and the Director of Public Prosecutions about a month ago, and they have said that they have acknowledged that the quality of case material coming from the JCF to them has significantly improved and has allowed them to actually be more effective in prosecuting cases. And that's largely because as cases are being developed, before it gets to the DPP office, there's a legal branch within the JCF that is guiding the investigators as well. So there's some very smart moves that have been made over the last several years. On the infrastructure side, a focus on 140 stations to be refurbished over the next several years and rebuilt. I believe we're closer to about 90 stations that have been advanced so far of the 140, and plans are in place to advance more of them, I guess close to 120 by the end of this fiscal year. On the equipment, several things happening and taking place. So having a new standard uniform, which is more modern and able to withstand the necessary tools that the police force members need to have. So there's identification of new standard uniforms. Most of those have been deployed. I think they should be finished deploying new uniforms to everyone during the course of this year. Body-worn cameras have been distributed, not for every officer at this point in time. I believe that, I don't have the hard numbers, but I believe that of the 6 stoves that we're looking for, about half of them that have already been deployed. One of the things that we recognize in initial consensus is our mobile fleet, the mobility of the fleet. So 300 new fit-for-purpose vehicles. These are not just the Toyota Corollas that we see on the road. These are way more modern facilities, again, built for purpose with a lot of technology in them, are on the road now. And then they have the ability at this point in time to actually track where all the police vehicles are. And that, of course, enables dispatch and their ability to respond way more efficient than it had been previously. From a technology standpoint, huge investments in technology have taken place. The communication network that used to exist is, if we're in 2 different police jurisdictions within Jamaica, Area 1 versus Area 2, and I'm chasing a criminal from Area 1 and he drives into Area 2, I could not even hand that off to somebody in Area 2 because we're on 2 different radio networks. Again, that was 3 years ago. The investments have taken place, and there's a much more ubiquitous communication network in place. Huge expansion, huge investments in technology generally, both in terms of connectivity at the stations, but in terms of moving from manual taking of statements and keeping it in what was called station book, the big books, for those of you who are familiar with it. Station diaries, big books where you used to write everything down. It's now all being computerized. So a lot of advancement in investments taking place there. But what is huge for our force, and we are only force in this hemisphere, I said this hemisphere, but within the Caribbean, that has achieved ISO 9001. And I believe that we're at 25 of our locations at ISO 9001 certification. It is very unique. I cannot impress us how huge a deal this has been for them and for Jamaica in terms of ensuring that the things that we do are done with a quality and with consistency that is required for, again, a sustainable operations of the JCF as well. So moving beyond existing, the last 2 slides. So a lot of that has been done in the first phase. We have now in the new consensus signing looked to move on to several other programs. Again, just ensuring that the transformation program continues unabated, but more importantly, moving from measuring has it been done or not to measuring efficiencies. And again, part of the discussion I can have with Dr. Grant as we get into it is, what are the kinds of things that we can begin to do to speak about? We've made this huge investment, somewhere in the region of about 39, we've made billions of dollars of investments in the JCF. Another $39 billion is budgeted. Let us speak about how we're going to spend that and measure and ensure that we're delivering. ensure that we're delivering an improvement year on year and for every investment that takes place in the constabulary force. So great transformation, lots of money spent. As you can see, we've seen a 19% reduction in crime year on year. So last year we saw about a 14% reduction. So far this year, we've seen another 19% reduction year on year. So it may not feel that way, but we are seeing progress. And I think until we get to some hurdle point, most of Jamaica may not feel it. But this 19% reduction, in fact, is specific around homicides. 14% reduction overall for all crime, but 90% reduction in homicides. Again, moving in the right direction. I'm going to leave off. We can speak about CMOC, which is a body. I'm no longer the chair. George Overton is now the chair. Unfortunately, he's not here with us this afternoon or this evening. But again, I wanted to give you a quick feel for what has been happening on this national consensus on crime, and in particular, what are the achievements that we've seen thus far. And I'm going to stop there. Took me a bit longer than I thought I would have, but I hope some of that information you found helpful.
Thank you very much. It was indeed. Thank you so much. But before I just want to let everybody know the option to write your questions in, and Donovan Longmore is going to handle that tonight as soon as we get to that point. I do want, before Stafford introduce Dr. Grant, I do want to say hello to Vinny, co-chair of Team Jamaica Bickle, that is on. Thank you so much. Teresa Brown, that is on as well. Thank you so much. Stafford, you may go ahead and introduce Dr. Grant.
Okay, thank you. I think the presentation by Mr. Distant was very in depth, and I think before we introduce Dr. Grant, should you take the question about it so we don't overlap or too much information?
No, I think we're good, because I think we need to bring her in. It's now 7:51. So I'd like to bring her in, and then once they keep on writing, either in the chat or write on a piece of paper like I have, then we'll get to them. But I do need to bring her in. Thank you for thinking of that, Mr. Grant.
All right, great. All right, everyone, I am so happy to see you on. We have two very knowledgeable panelists here, and Dr. Lloyd Distant has really been spoken. Now we're going to bring in one of our panelists that is very knowledgeable in the society about crime in Jamaica, and that is Dr. Lorna E. Grant. Dr. Grant, the PhD, MSW, is a professor in the Department of Criminal Justice and director of the graduate program at the North Carolina Central University. She has worked in various settings with students and youth. She began her higher education teaching at the University of the West Indies and the community colleges system in Jamaica. Thereafter, she taught at Clark's Atlanta University, Georgia, North Carolina Central University. She has over 25 publications of books, chapters in referred journals and books. Her research focuses on youth interaction with law enforcement, youth gang, delinquency in schools, human trafficking, child abuse, juvenile violence, policing, incarcerated parents, crime and tourism in the Caribbean, gun violence in the Caribbean, money laundering in the Caribbean, crime and violence in the Caribbean. Her professional membership includes the American Society of Criminology and the Academy of Criminal Justice Science. She is the chair of the Caribbean Crime Prevention Group, in which capacity she represented many criminal justice educators across the Caribbean. She served on several national and local boards, including Alpha Phi Sigma, the National Criminal Justice Honor Society, ABC Channel 11, and others. In addition, she served as a consultant to different criminal justice organizations. Dr. Grant is a recipient of numerous awards for her involvement in research, teaching, and services. Ladies and gentlemen, our panelists, Dr. Grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant, for that introduction. It's a good thing I can hear my bio reread at times because it reminds me of some of the things I'm involved in. Colleagues on the platform, good night. I will be looking at the topic about crime, consensus and crime, and what is happening.
You're muted, Dr. Grant. We're not hearing you.
You did not hear me from the beginning?
No, we heard and then you cut out.
Oh, it just went automatically back.
Okay,
sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying Mr. Distance gave a nice frame of reference about what is happening in Jamaica and what has been done so far. A lot of emphasis has been placed on the Jamaica Constable Force and what has been achieved. Now, from a criminalist background, I'm going to be looking at the social environment and crime, because we can have all the plans that should be implemented out there, and as well as plans that are being implemented. But how are we looking on crime from that social environment? What is happening? Now, Mr. Distant alluded to that the crime rate is down. Yes, but it is still high. And in particular, well, he said overall crime, but in particular, there are pockets of crime that are on the increase that needs to be addressed. And the question is why there are pockets of crimes that are on the increase. Now, looking at the social environment, what is happening in the environment in Jamaica? Why are so many, in particular youngsters, involved in crime? So we have to look at, for one, the community from which they are coming. What is in the community? Are there infrastructures in the community that will assist them to move beyond crime? We look at parenting lifestyle. What is happening in the household? Of course, we know there are some households, there are no parents, or it's a one parent. We know too that there are parent who are incarcerated. So who are the role models there? And if parents are incarcerated and their children are looking up to them, what they're doing, how are we going to educate these kids that this is not the value system that you should pursue? We look at educational opportunities. We know what is happening through the length and breadth of Jamaica when it comes on to our educational system. Are our kids getting quality education? How is the education impact to them? Now, when I heard in recent times, when the scamming was very popular, youngsters were leaving school to go and in the scamming industry. I call it an industry because there's more money flowing there. We look at employment in the community. Do we have enough employment opportunities? Are we providing enough employment opportunities for these youngsters and you look at employment, yes, they might get jobs, but what about upward mobility? Are they going to remain at the bottom of the ladder? Upward mobility is very important. And upward mobility comes along with remuneration. Because if they are going to be at the bottom just getting basic pay, there's no way for them to go up. Remuneration remains at a stage. Then what is expected? They are going to look at more meaningful ways, which most times are illegal activities to be involved in order to get that what is desired as Maslow hierarchy of needs. Yeah, we know where the level and where self-actualization comes in. We look at the health system in communities. We look at mental health and the youngsters as well as adults in the communities. How is this impacting their behavior? Are our youngsters, for example, who are taken to these facilities, are they assessed? Are they just put into rehabilitation without even doing a true assessment to know what is happening to them, why they are involved in delinquent activities or crime overall? So looking at the social background, that social environment is very important. Mr. Distance mentioned about the Jamaica Consular Force and all the things that are happening. Yes, some good things are happening, but not much emphasis I've heard on the individuals in the police force themselves. I suppose in the next phase, that is something that can be focused on. How are we going to address the needs of officers in order for them to even buy wholesale into what is happening, giving them all the technology, all the new cars, but what about their well-being? Because that is very important. If these areas are not addressed, then attrition is going to continue. And attrition is going to continue for different reasons, okay? So looking from a holistic point of view, there has to be good engagement between law enforcement, the community, in order for that trust to develop to further reduce crime. Okay, I'll stop there.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction and give us some thought-provoking questions as they come along. Donovan, do you want to take the question in the chat?
Yeah, there's only one so far.
Okay.
So I think that was Mr. Distance. Question is, what measures are being considered to engage disaffected youth in the Jamaican society who are more often the perpetrators of crime?
Okay, so it's a really great question. I saw it in the chat, and so I smell because it aligns with a good several of the points that were being made by Dr. Grant before. And if you permit, I'd like to try a very quick sort of take it back. So I didn't speak a lot about the social, community, and cultural transformation pillar, which I believe is a very important conversation. It really goes to the heart of some of the questions raised by Dr. Grant. So there are several initiatives that are taking place, but I think the most important one is the work that's being done by the National Commission on Violence Prevention. So very often we've seen people guess to say, this is what needs to happen, this is what something else needs to happen. There's a study that was done, an EU-funded study that was done by a technical assistance team that looked at the psychosocial support that's required in our schools. So we recognize, and the National Commission on Violence Prevention recognize, that one of the things that's most important is getting the parents, the extent to which we have parents or absentee parents involved, It's not just about getting the children in school, it's about ensuring that they're engaged after school. And then as we get into the youth, is about a huge component of it is ensuring that there's an availability. But first, that there's a civic sense of responsibility and a recognition that there are other ways to get yourself to a decent life. You don't have to scam and get involved in crime. But as you get beyond that, is also the role that can be played by entities such as the Heart, NSTA, or the Heart, other institutions, quasi-government institutions, and the private sector to ensure that there are job opportunities available for these youngsters. So I mentioned very quickly 4 key things that we focus on. So the community renewal program within the PIOJ, World Bank funded, very clear around the data that needs to be tracked in terms of which communities are the most vulnerable. So all communities require some help, but there are some communities that require more help than others. 784 communities across the island studied. 35 of those communities, 35 of the 700 communities contribute somewhere in the region of 45% of violent crimes. So can you imagine if we just transition those communities to being, well, they won't become cherry gardens overnight, but if we can move them on the spectrum of being renewed communities. So having the data is important. Let's know where we need to go. And I think Dr. Grant will understand the data being having the data being the most important step. Once we know what the data is, then the National Commission on Violence Prevention is supposed to guide us on programs that need to be implemented. The National Commission on Violence Prevention came up with a preliminary report last year, identifying 9 key focal areas for attention within across Jamaica, but particularly within these communities. A lot of it focused on youth and parenting requirements. The Citizen Security Plan, so I mentioned 4, so Community Renewal Program, the National Commission on Violence Prevention, the Citizen Security Plan Secretariat as a body under the Ministry of National Security. They have started for the last 2 or 3 years, bringing in all the government bodies, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, the local government. They have a meeting every quarter that includes all the permanent secretaries and most of the ministers. So we have one, instead of having a fractured and misaligned set of programs, we are very clear on the programs and how they come together. Once we are clear on what those things are, then it's about implementing the National Commission on Violence Prevention. So we have 2 sets of templates and trials taking place. One is the Citizen Security Plan Secretariat. The other one is Operation STAR, an initiative driven by the private sector, but also including broader civil society. And I would encourage at some point in time to have the Project STAR team come and present about what they're seeing in the 7 communities they have focused on. And they focus on those key dimensions that are supposed to transform the communities and the youth in those communities. So a long-winded answer just to say that we probably need to have a whole session just to talk about what's happening in transforming the communities and culturally how we engage with each other as Jamaicans. There's also some great work being done by the Ministry of Justice in terms of conflict resolution, how we deal with conflicts within communities, because that's a huge component of how the youth interact with each other. So you step on my shoes, the answer is to slap you. No, you step on my shoes, the answer is to speak about why my shoes are important to me, because I only have 1 pair, and for you to apologize. So again, I can talk about it. I need to get off my soapbox, so I'll pause there. But there are a number of things that are taking place, but I think the huge component about this, the National Commission on Violence Prevention work, and some of the things the private sector is doing in terms of trying to find more jobs and engage with the youth as well.
Okay, Ms. Distance. Questions are getting very juicy as we go along, but I saw Andrew Sharp. I also have a question myself, but Andrew Sharp is next, and then we're going to go to iPhone and Miss Alvaro. So, Andrew, unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you so much. I just got on. I'm sorry, I'm in the airport, but I had to get onto this. One of the things I want to ask, we always have all of these projects, but in the region, we lack implementation. I want to see where are we in terms of how is the program going, who has it been affecting, and how the improvement is happening. We gotta do checks and balance. We gotta monitor how things are going. We have all of this report and we're not monitoring how is these things are being implemented. Are they making impact on the community so that we can see where we're doing, so that we don't have to be duplicating again and over and over. So I want to see reports coming out that, okay, in downtown Kingston, we were able to cover 25 communities or whatever. We want to see that, because all of this reporting, the reporting and all of these things that we're going to reach out to this group and we're not showing any tangible effect. We're not showing any improvement on how these stuff are going. So I want to see that. I want to see us coming back with not just talking about reporting, but this is what the program has been doing, so that we can start making change. We do all this reporting and we're not doing implementation. So let us see what are we implementing, the areas that we're doing implementation, and how are they working, so that we can improve on this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Both Mr. Distance and Mrs. Grant can answer. Either one.
I very quickly say I totally agree with Andrew's point. One of the reasons why CMOC was formed was around saying we keep speaking about doing things and we have an implementation deficit. I think I spoke about that in regards to constabulary force. So now we're seeing the implementation take place because we are tracking it and holding accountability. We just now need to move beyond the implementation to actually measuring and reporting on the impact of the investments that are taking place. So implementation is one thing, reporting on impact and the deliverables is the next thing. And there's a lot that needs to be done in that regard on the social and community side of it, because there are tons of programs. If I had time, I could give you analogies, but there are tons of too many programs that we have out there that are languishing, and we have no proof or evidence that they've either been implemented or implemented effectively to actually drive a difference. So.
Okay.
Lord, that's
Grant,
what
you
we
have
say.
anything?
Encouragement, sweeten labor.
That's true. Dr. Grant, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was about to say, I agree with Mr. Distance. There are a multitude of programs there. Everybody start a program. Some survive, some fall by the way. But then we are not really seeing the impact. What is the output at the end of the day? Is just to have a program name, or is it that we are reaching the population that the program was intended to reach? And even talking about programs, I am looking back to when the National Youth Service was relaunched, and mention was made about different ministries that are now coming together. When the National Youth Program was relaunched, of course, I was very involved in it. All the ministries worked together, and we were able to get into communities, pull youngsters out of the communities, youngsters who we saw them as, or we call them unattached youngsters. They were being trained for a month. They did apprenticeship, and many of these youngsters went into education. They went into skilled jobs. They were employed in different areas. And I'm wondering what is happening on the ground really now, because when I was there and was involved in youth service, we were able to get thousands of youngsters being placed in jobs. And some of those youngsters, if you do that survey down there now, they're going to tell you their livelihood started in the National Youth Service. Now we still have heart and the rest, but are we really focusing on the unattached youths who, if we do not address their needs, these are the same youths who are going to become career criminal over time. Couple years ago, I did a research on behalf of the government, And I had to go to all these juvenile centers. Actually, last year I was there, I was doing research down there on some of these youngsters there. And when I hear their situation, why they are there, we are failing our young people from the community level. Because I heard mention made about working with members in the community, but it's not working with members in the community alone. We need to start in the schools. We know the agents of socialization. There are a lot of youngsters who are not going to get that first socialization process because they're dysfunctioning in many of the households. But the school we know is a second. So the school has to be involved. And how is the school going to become involved? We have to have trained personnel there who are going to able to help these youngsters. For example, the word conflict or the words conflict revolution was mentioned. Yeah, we need to have trained people who can start there before they get into that third round of socialization, which is a community. So we need to start focus on the ground, because if we catch our youngsters at the early stage, they are not going to become the career criminals, because they are the ones that are going to mature into the criminal lifestyle.
Okay, stick a pin because I have a question for that. But I'm just gonna go to these two. They are related. So Kamita and Jeffrey, we're gonna get back to yours right after this. Here's the first one. It says, when is there going to be a push to update the justice system, and how can the system get any better when the people who are supposed to craft the laws are also practicing lawyers? In other words, corrupted. Hold on. The next one to go with that is are there any plans or effort to revamp the judicial system to ensure that the police can do the better jobs without political influence or influences? This must be implemented for effective policing. So you have one about the judicial system, and there's also the last one I just read about moving and getting the system to a better place without having political influence in it. So both you and Mr. Durant can take this.
Okay. I'll start talking about reforming the system.
Mhm.
Now, the system comprised of different parts. So that means all parts in the system must be addressed. And as we know, the system starts with law enforcement, the courts, and corrections. So unless we are going to address each component of the system, then we will not see overall change in the system. So what are we going to do in law enforcement or policing, let me say, in order to address the system? Now, based on Mr. Distance's plan, what is there? There are some tangible things that are happening. But as I mentioned earlier on, more need to be, there are some areas that needs attention in order to have that transformation.
Yes.
The same in the court system. Because the laws are there. How are they implemented? Who implement them? Are they just? Are citizens feeling that they are treated just based on who they are? So that has to be addressed. And we go into corrections, the very same thing happening to with correction. So in order to change the system, it must be looked at, all components must be looked at because they're all interrelated.
All right, Mr. Distance.
Yeah, sure. So Donovan, and I jump in because I think that's one of the greater utilities of the consensus that was formed, because we looked at all of these pillars, and there's one, as I said, I spent 30 minutes just summarizing the constabulary force. I can do a very similar thing on the justice system. So absolutely correct, Dr. Grant, and some very good questions around visibility on what's happening in the justice system. So there's a justice reform implementation program that was drafted and implemented. I think the most of the implementation was done And as a result, the Chief Justice, who's done a really good job of being very clear on his targets, his expectation, and reporting, what you see, especially in the parish courts, is a continuous reduction in the backlog of cases, as an example, because he's very clear around the structure that is necessary, the approach that needs to be taken, and how the judges need to clear the backlog while continuing to ensure case certainty for everybody that comes in front of the justice system, as an example. And so there's a whole construct around the Justice Reform Implementation Plan that was completed. There's a JRIP 2 that should have been in front of Cabinet a year ago. So we are, the country is behind on that, between the justice system and Cabinet, because we believe the Justice Reform Implementation Plan 2 really needs to get to the heart of additional utilization of technology, greater, more seamless connectivity of information between the police force and between the JCF and the justice system as well, and ultimately to correctional services. But that JRIP 2 needs to cover that. There's a huge component of it that actually speaks to citizen education, because a lot of us, citizens, our lawyers know the law, but you need to have a basic understanding yourself around what your rights and your responsibilities and expectations are as well. And so what I have to say is a lot still needs to be done in the justice system. I spoke about what I call the ecosystem. So some legislations are necessary, but more importantly, police being effective and the modernization of our justice system and dealing with some of those, I would say, the intangibles, but also inequities that exist that needs to be balanced out and cleared in our system. I'll leave you with this as well. When we were doing this, there were 400 pieces of 400 laws that were identified, penalty provisions in law, 400 penalty provisions in law that were totally outdated. Crimes, I don't know the exact number, but for example, if you impersonated a police officer, your fine was $2,000. And those kinds of fines are nonsensical in the world that we're living in these days. Of those 400, I think there were 12 ministries identified to reduce those, to update those penalty provisions. To this date, only one ministry has actively tried to reduce theirs. So, of 400, maybe we've seen about 40 of them, 30, 40 of them updated and modernized. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done there. But what I'd have to say is, I don't want us leaving this conversation thinking negatively. The government and the justice system and the stakeholders, and I can't speak for the government, but certainly from where we sit as an independent body, we're seeing where they're clear on the things that need to take place. We're seeing progress in some areas. A lot more progress is required across the piece.
Okay.
All right, give me 1 minute, Donovan.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just want to recognize Carmita Alvarez, Inspector Lindo, and Dean Roden. And I wanted to give you, Donovan, the opportunity to ask your question next.
Okay. Well, it's based upon the next one I'm going to read by Ms. Alvarez. It says there is an issue with involuntary return migrants who are shut out of the economy and have problems obtaining employment due to their status. What is being done to integrate these persons and provide incentives for the employers to give these individuals an opportunity to be part of the workforce? Very important question. Now, you are a social worker master there, Mrs. Grant, and Mr. Distance. I want both of you to partake in that question.
I cannot speak to what is available or what provision is made for returning residents, as I would call them, re-employment in the country. From my knowledge, I know quite a few persons who have returned to Jamaica and they are in the workforce there. I cannot give you figures, but I know. But again, the question is, what area of the workforce are they looking to be employed in? How qualified or credential or skill or experience they have for the areas they want to go? Is it that I just want to be employed as a teacher, but I'm not trained as a teacher. So for that question, I think some deep diving would have to be done to find out what really is happening to persons who want to return or people who have returned, re-employment.
Okay, before I go to Mr. Distance, I was gonna ask something similar to what Miss Alvarado said. The fact of the matter is that deportees, when they get sent back home to Jamaica, right? Are there incentives or programs that will help them? Like we reach out to them to help, because I mean, a lot of them, when they get back home, there's no family, no friends or whatever, and they're out there by themselves and they need help to get back into society. So is there a program or programs that are available to reach out to them and says, okay, yeah, we know you messed up, we understand that, but at the same time, we want to also make you a productive citizen, and our programs in the community. That's why a lot of these young men and women per two are always getting into trouble, because there's no opportunity for them. So that was part of my question. And then I'm gonna let Andrew come on, and then I'm gonna read what Jeffrey talked about. So that's what I was trying to get at.
Mr. Distance, I'll pass that one to you since you're on the ground. You're on the ground, I'm not down there. I only do research and I visit annually.
So I quickly say it's a good question for me. I just made a note to go and ask. I am not aware of any program that is focused on involuntary returning residents, deportees, if that's the terminology to use. I'm not aware of any such program. I would think if there's such a program, it's probably channeled through correctional services. And I'd have to say, of the 8 areas in the pillar, that's one of the 2 areas that we have seen the least progress. So again, to Andrew's earlier point, a lot of talk about the things that need to be done. They did a presentation 3 years ago that made it very clear that they knew what needed to be done, but have seen no implementation plan, which is, even before I measure whether they are being effective in doing something, I'd love to see an implementation plan. I'm not seeing that in correctional services. So it's a gap. We'll continue to engage with the ministry to see what's happening there. But in terms of programs to reintegrate involuntary returning residents, I'm not aware of any. I've made a note to ask around them.
All right, thank you so much. Next one from Jeffrey. In 2015, there were over 1,200 murders officially recorded in Jamaica. 2016, the government did announce that the implementation of Plan Secure Jamaica, this was supposed to result in the decrease of murders. After 8 years, many have said it's not happened. No, rather than saying it's a failure, is Plan Secure Jamaica, because I did hear Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, speak earlier that said crime has decreased. So is Plan Security Jamaica really, really working to make it a success to help reduce crime?
So I'll jump on that one first. I couldn't say. So there are elements of Plan Secure Jamaica that are built throughout the underlinings of the consensus. JCF transformation is a huge component of it, ensuring the investments are taking place there. Some legislations aren't a part of it, but correctional services is a huge component of it. And as I said before, I don't see progress taking place on the correctional services side. Maybe things are happening, we just have not received any visibility on it, even though we have asked. So I'd have to say, ultimately, Plan Secure Jamaica is the government's plan. That is their crime plan. So when people say there's no crime plan, I keep saying there's Plan Secure Jamaica. So don't say there's no crime plan. Say you don't agree with it, but say that there isn't one. So there is a crime plan. A huge component of it is around the JCF transformation. And in my estimation, the reductions that we're seeing are largely as a result of the JCF transformation program. And if the JCF transformation program is a part of Plan Secure Jamaica, then you'd have to say Plan Secure Jamaica is having some effect.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
But again, that question is best pointed to the minister, not to me.
Yes. Go ahead, Dr. Grant.
Okay. I just did a quick research about programs for involuntary returnees to Jamaica. There's one program there that is known as Family Unification Resettlement Initiative. And they provide service as reconnecting to families, counseling, emergency care, health care, and also referrals.
And
Okay.
that's
Can you
Carmita's
put that in the
plan.
chat, please?
Penny?
Carmita's asked a question. Could you put that info in the chat?
Yeah,
So we
and
can
there's a
research it.
number here. There's a number here that one can call from outside Jamaica to get more information on the program. I just did a quick research on it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Andrew,
Just provide it in
Donovan,
the chat.
I'm sorry,
Hold on,
I'm sorry,
Donovan.
Donovan. Okay.
hold on. 1 minute, Stafford. I think she's actually talking about Carmita's program.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
it
I'm
is
gonna refer
Carmita's
to.
program. And
So-
Dr. Grant, Carmita is actually have her
She's
hands up.
here. She's
You'll
here.
hear her very shortly.
Well,
So,
yeah,
after Andrew,
and
yeah.
maybe she can expand more on that program. I just did a quick research.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Okay,
All right, go ahead,
we're gonna go
Donovan.
to Andrew and then let Carmita speak about what Dr. Grant just spoke about. So go ahead, Andrew.
Okay.
Dr. Grant and Lloyd, I'm so happy. One of the things we must be remindful coming out of the United Nations conference that our Prime Minister was chairing, the future of the generation. It outlined the importance of civil society groups, social actors, and the youths playing an important part in these aspects. So you just spoke about one of my amazing diaspora civil society organization, Carmita, and there are many others who we should not depend on the government, but work hand in hand with the government for transformational change. We have to rely on civil society. We have to work with civil society for implementation and ensuring that they have a seat at the table for policy changes. If that doesn't happen, that just came out of the United Nations conference, which we, the civil society, demanded that the government include us, including the youths, at the table for transformation and for implementation. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are many organizations, civil society organizations that are working out there in silo because we haven't pulled them together, and the government needs to get its data together so that we can help them to achieve what they need to achieve. If they don't include the civil society, how are you going to get progress? How are you going to do implementation? So on this group, I advise that it's important, like myself and Stafford and Carmita, who have been doing the work for many years, rely on our expertise, work along with us to make the change and the difference. Thank you.
Very good. Very good, Andrew. All right, Miss Carmita, you're up next, my dear.
Okay, yes. I just wanted to, to state that we do have a program. We do have a program, that is, it's our organization is incorporated in the United States as well as in Jamaica. And we do provide these services. However, because of the stigmatization of persons who have been involuntarily returned, there is a problem with them getting employment. Once it is discovered, once they go into an interview and there's an accent, there is the assumption that they have been deported. And that is and it becomes a barrier. And it's not that these people are not qualified. Many of them are qualified, but just because they are deported. Now, I actually reside in the United States and I'm a part of the criminal justice system in the United States. One of the things that I do know is that you do have companies that offer employment to individuals who were formerly incarcerated. And these programs really provide, an opportunity for persons who were incarcerated to get back into society. And the programs work very well because once people are given an opportunity, they will do well. But one of the things that I was thinking, if in Jamaica, if we could incentivize this, so okay, if you employ IRMs as they're referred to, then there is some sort of incentive, whether it is a tax deduction or something, because once we have people employed, they will not want to go into criminal activity in order to support themselves. And that is something that I've been advocating for the longest time. We need to have some sort of, we can do what we can, and we do what we can. And we do, try and get people employed, but it is very, very difficult, and then and because of that, you have them coming back into the United States illegally through Mexico because they can't get jobs, so we really need to do something better in terms of, of helping these individuals, especially those who really want to come back and help to build the country.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. As we move along, we got like 5 more. This is a suggestion, and yes, Miss Fortune, it is a program out there like that. It says, can a matrix be developed to capture the programs implemented to reduce crimes and create a reporting system through the executive director of these programs? This is an opportunity also to get diaspora involved and to make a contribution to crime reduction. And we've been doing it for years. And I know you heard about the crime, task force and all that. That's trying to work, but sometimes, somehow, we are faced with difficulties through government officials and others. But yes, there's a program out there when we're trying. Stafford Grant is very implementing in doing what he's doing in terms of being a law enforcement officer himself, former. Mr. Grant is always all over the Caribbean trying to make these things happen. Me and Michelle and everybody else have gone there to try to make sure that this can work. And it will work, because we here, the diaspora, need to see how we can do more to get involved with officials down there so that we can have our input be heard at the table. So that's being done. Here's your next question. What thought is being given to future where technology will create displacement in employment? Is the educational system providing necessary skills for the future technology? This is another area that the diaspora can be involved in. And Michelle and Stafford, yes, I think that one is for you too, because you guys are heavily involved. Stafford, I know you have the program. Andrew, I know you have a program that's there as well. And like Kamita just mentioned, she's working on other programs that will help as well. So anyone of you can answer that?
Yeah, I would jump on that part of it. As Michelle have something to add, is that the biggest thing that is a barrier to the development of the programs and for it to be more create an impact in the communities is the lack of support from the community on a whole. They will talk and ask about things, but when you put a program together, like the program that we have, and ask for support, because as one of our late former prime ministers said, take cash to care. And as we know, we cannot depend on government to do everything, as it has been structured. And with the programs that myself, Michelle, and Andrew Sharp are implementing across the Caribbean, involve Jamaica, to be on a whole, we are not getting that response from the resident, from the community on a whole as such, to really create a great impact. There are kids that are very interested and want to be trained, want to be mentored, or want to get on there and think, but to get the support, speak about it right now. The coding program we have for kids in Jamaica, started in Jamaica, now we are in the Caribbean with it. And they are calling upon us to help them because they keep the kids to be getting a little more advanced in coding rather than just the games on the computer. Now, we expanded to the point that the amount of requests that we got, the letters that Michelle, to her drive on her church, she just donated 40 laptops to Jamaica 2 months ago. Over 2 years, my foundation, I've donated 68 desktops and laptops mixture to schools, especially schools with challenged kids. These parents need the assistance to help their kids that are challenged the most, and we don't want them to gravitate to the gangsters out there, because it is very easy for them to do that. But when you call upon the community to assist you getting the electronic devices, it's not there at all. So people they will all say, yes, the government should do this, but we need the community to step up and help so that we can help our youths. We cannot depend on the government. And the other thing too that is creating a problem is the community on a whole. I would say some members of the community are providing themselves as a marketing thing for people to steal, break into the schools, take the laptops, the computers, and the things, and then they purchase it on the outside. So that is one of the things to also. So we cannot depend on government alone. We need the assistance of the community to help us do the heavy work, as Donovan, Malcolm would say, and we can help them and make it better off in the community. But we are calling up on the community on how to support us with the program.
If I may say something there about community involvement. When we are going into communities with programs, of course, we want the community to be a part of it. But sometimes it's a top-down approach. And you might go into a community with a program, and that is not what the community needs. A bottom-up approach is always better. And if we use that approach, then that is where you're going to get them buying into it. They are going to support what is happening. Your coding program, I'm saying anything derogatory about it. It's a good program. But the question I ask, I'm a parent, I'm a community member. After the coding, what next? What do I do after I learn the coding? Where am I going to get employment? Because in the community, there's no employment, but I did this coding program, what next? So, sometimes you have to think about it. Yeah, you came up with that grand idea or your community, your organization, but then you're moving it. Yeah, it is going across the Caribbean. But then the question, after I finish coding, sir, what next am I going to do with it?
Well, I can answer that.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry, Donovan. Let me just reboot quickly here. Okay, the program that we started with the coding program is now we just put it onto them. We got the request. It started out in Sabla Lamar. The request, because technology was coming in and most of these kids and the school could not offer the courses and the thing, and private teachers were expensive for a lot of the parents. Coming out of parents PT, they asked, and we were approached, and that was two years and some of that, and that's where it started from. Now, where do they go from there? Most of them goes on, like we have from 12 years down to from 12 years down, who want to be a part of it, and from 13 up to 25. Now, the after school program that where we do on weekends, that a lot of the kids move on to college or into high school with an advanced knowledge of doing the computer work. There is an academy in Jamaica, the Amber Heart Coding Academy in Tulloch-Neil in Jamaica, that offers 1 year free of computer technology. Some of these kids who are through Heart or the primary school that get to go to that school, every one of them that graduated get a letter of internship with an institution in Jamaica. It is up to them now to move on. Some of them are working in private companies. Some of them are working with other big companies. But what we are doing is to give them a little knowledge so that the advanced stage, they can do better in the various areas they want. They are the ones that call us. And it is working, especially in the school that have challenge kids.
Oh, just want to add, thank you, Stafford. Miss Grant, yes, because I was a part of that program as well. And the fact of the matter is a lot of the students are bright students. At first they didn't know nothing like me. I didn't know nothing about coding. And the program brings so many of them on that they had to split it in two. But nonetheless, I know quite a few of them who went on, because I got one of the students to actually build a website for someone who knows nothing about website. So these are things that we're implementing. And as Andrew mentioned earlier, the fact that we want to make sure that we incorporate what we have here. And though the teachers are from Jamaica, what we here have some incentive and ideas in which we can implement in Jamaica to make life better for the students. And a lot of these kids didn't have nothing to do on Saturdays. They were just running around and going outside playing, and they jumped on this coding program like there was no tomorrow. Like we said, we had too many because we had to get funding to pay the teachers. We have to pay them. And I saw the greatness in it because it was transferred to other countries. I think Grenada, St. Lucia, I'm not mistaken, you and Andrew did a wonderful job with that. And other islands hopped on and were well received by them. So, you know, these are things that's happening. And I know it's getting late and we don't want to keep up too much time. But Kevin
I just
Richards,
want
he
to
was,
add one thing
go ahead,
as
Michelle.
well. And that's one of the reasons why I also do the laptops, because what I did with my laptop, I kind of marry it to the coding program. So yes, I'm giving the schools laptops, but now it's not just gonna sit there. It's gonna be a part of the coding program. And then what I found out is that um, because there's a lack of laptops, so to speak, or computers in the rural areas, when they get to high school, these kids are at a disadvantage because a couple of the schools that I gave the computers to, this was the first time that they're going to have a computer in the school. And so now they can teach these children what exactly the keys are, what you can do. So we are making sure we are starting at the very bottom so we can push them out. So by the time we get to high school, they are very competent and we move on from there. Thank you very much, Donovan. You can take it.
Okay, more questions are coming in. Just want to add, also, Ms. Grant, Dean Roden, he has a wonderful program which I aired on the air every Saturday with the children, where we give them the opportunity to speak about what they want to be in the future. And trust me when I tell you, these young men and women are brilliant. It starts from 3 years old all the way up until 18 to high school and college, and we follow them and make sure we maintain, you know, what they're doing and try to help provide funding, because reality is reality. Money talk. And these kids have to go on to school and somebody have to try and help them, because a lot of them are from the poorer community, and we want to make sure that we try and push and give them as much incentive as possible. But before we go on, before we get carried away, this one is for you, Mr. Distant. It's coming from Kevin Richards, and he says, "Good evening, Mr. Distant. Mentioned that conflict resolution among community youths. There have been a number of violent interaction in our high schools in the past and currently." I'm going to add that. "It's the Ministry of Education and Justice collaborating to addressing the high school culture and developing respect for themselves." So, Mr. Distant.
So there are, again, you know, so many great questions coming forward. There are several programs in different schools. The Ministry of Education has worked alongside the Ministry of Justice, but more so with some of our international partners and their own programs within the ministry to disseminate out to the schools. A big part of the challenge has continued to be the personnel resources, the guidance counselors to help to implement and drive through some of these programs. So on the conflict resolution side, one of the bigger programs that we have is through the Ministry of Justice, but they've only rolled that out to 9 communities now. So at the very minimum, we want them to get to 43 communities. But beyond that, all of these programs need to be replicated. Many of these programs need to be replicated in the schools, to Mr. Richards' question, but just not enough taking place. It's, again, another one. I've tried to get some statistics from the CSP and share that with you offline so I can be more specific around the number of programs that are taking place in schools and where some of the gaps are, because there are gaps.
Okay, this one is referring to you, Sharon, Sharon Smith, who's one of the great diasporans here. La Fortune says, "Another great suggestion I would like to make is to establish a national mentorship program through each school system alumnus so that students can be guided in their productive careers. This is also an area that the diaspora can also help." We're doing that, with La Fortune, but let me go to Sharon Smith so Sharon could expand on that. So go ahead, Sharon.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Before I expand on it, I just want to point out something, and hope Michelle can assist. I just want to point out on the mentorship program for Hustle Market, Michelle, we are in and everyone else, every other panel can take up on this. Through our program at Jamani, which is alumni of Osamarty Technical High School, we are doing the library. We're repairing the library, and we bought some laptops and some desktop. But lo and behold, our desktop are stuck on the wall.
Mm.
You know why? The Ministry of Education, our National Education Trust, PCC, has expired.
Hmm.
And you know, this is part of building Jamaica. This is part of assisting Jamaica. And I just want, any one of you guys, Michelle, any one of you can look into a matter like this, because it's not just Osamarty. I'm sure there are several others items that need to be donated or they're stuck on the wall. But onto the mentorship program, it is a great idea. It is working. It has been working for a lot of alumnus in Jamaica. Our programs at Osamarty Technical High School have really put out some some success stories from our mentorship program, which we started 10 years ago. And alumni's organization from Jamaica have been doing it over the years. A lot of them have started. I've gotten a lot of calls from persons asking how do we go about this mentorship program. I've given several advice, but yes, it is a great program once you can get the school to agree to work with you, and then you get the partnership with these alumni organization. Taking it from a large scale, or to say, maybe say the diaspora on a whole, like to combine it, it maybe not work because each organization is doing their own thing. But what the diaspora on a whole, as in Michelle's position as the diaspora rep, can do is to encourage and maybe can put on a program like this, a meeting like this, and invite alumni organization on, and to find out from them, how they are doing it, how is it going, and the different, because I get, several different brothers, seven different minds. We at Osamarty might be doing it one way, others might be doing it in another way. Because what we do at Osamarty is that persons, get them to commit to mentoring these students, get them to commit to pay for their school fee or examination fee. But it does work, and it is a great program. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. If you don't mind me, Donovan, one
Go right
minute.
ahead.
Sharon, I'm gonna reach out to you. If not tomorrow, tomorrow is Thursday. No, today's Thursday, right? No,
No, tomorrow, tomorrow.
tomorrow's Thursday. By us having a holiday, I'm totally thrown off for the week. So either Thursday or Friday, I will call you and talk to you about the two things: the stuff on the wharf and also the mentoring program with the Alumni Association. So I will text you to see a time that is good for both of us to chit chat. All right. Thanks, Sharon.
Okay, Mr.
Okay, we got two more questions and then Andrew. This one is already answered. Melissa said, what are the expectation from this meeting? And Michelle, of course, gave the answer to that. So they're looking for ideas and suggestion. It's actually the consensus on crime. So we're talking about that, ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us. So we're not carried away. We just jump into other areas that can affect crime, especially with schools and the young men and women. And here's one again. Man, we got to get this young lady on the group here, Michelle. Regarding deportees, speak with the Jamaican consulate as the social worker was assigned to Malvo. That's a good thing. I think we've already done that, right, Kamita?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done that too. Here's another one. She asks, what if we develop a fund to help deportees become entrepreneurs?
Hmm.
Good point.
Yeah.
Madam Social Worker, Ms. Grant, Dr. Grant, you think that's feasible, or distance, you think that's feasible?
Yes, but much research would have to be done in that before,
Okay.
because it's not just jump in to develop a fund.
Mhm.
What will be the purpose? How are we going to reach these deportees? You know, it has to be a long-term plan that will be sustainable.
Mhm. All right, Kavita, you can probably speak better on this.
Yes. Well, that is a very important point. Training them to become entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
You know, in ways in which they can earn something for themselves. And you know, we have a soft loan program for persons, you know, who express that interest. And it, there's this one person in St. Thomas, you know, and he just wants assistance with getting a fishing gear together so we can fish, you know, go fishing. There's another young man who was employed in the security industry, and he wants to start work on his own now because he's now 60 years old, and and finding it difficult to get a job. And so, well, do private, do something on your own. But if we should have, a structured program where individuals coming back and have certain skills, and they can get, that would be good. But a little organization such as me, using mostly personal funds, we can't really, have a sustained program as that. But where do we find them? We find them because we have them. They are there, and so if the government has something in place, a lot of these individuals, when they come and they're greeted at the airport, the ministry, the government is right there. What we do when they come is we invite them to our office and we do an assessment. What are their skills? What are their weaknesses? What are their needs? And we try and work with them as best as we can. And as I said, a lot of them would remain if there was something there for them, but a lot of time there isn't. And so the thing is to return. But getting them to build their own businesses, that would be a great thing to do. And some years ago, there was money that was offered to the government through the IOM, and that would have done exactly that, and the government had rejected it.
Good point.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
1989.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Andrew Sharp.
Thank you so much. I think we're missing the whole thing, and I think moving forward, we have to have a database. Michelle, I've been asking for that from you a long time, and you and Donovan. Who in the diaspora is doing what? Who in Jamaica? Where is the list of these programs so that we don't duplicate, but we enhance each other? Without data, we are scratching and we throwing everything in the air. We need to get our data together. Where are those programs? What are these programs doing? Who is doing these programs? So I don't have to come and reinvent another program. All I have to do is collaborate, and we have been collaborating, and we need to collaborate more. And if we want to make change, we have to get our data together. So I'm hearing all of this. I'm not seeing a data. Yes, people know of Carmita, but how many people know of Carmita program? So we got to get it together. And Michelle, I ask again, and I plead to you and Donovan, we need to get the diaspora list together with the organization doing what, so that people can look at it and say, okay, good, I could work with this one. Everybody know I do in disability. Everybody know me as disability. But I would love to work with others. I would love to know what Ozemate is doing so that we can work together. So please, data-driven gives result, and we need that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you mind, Donovan, stepping forward?
What I was gonna say is the fact that Andrew, to add to that, yes, I remember you did ask for it. There are organizations that are Caribbean base here. I have started a list, but I'm trying to get more because I found out that there's some political leaders that are running certain programs that we need to get on. Not all of them are West Indian, but it does affect the West Indian community. So we're trying to put all those together as well. So I should be able to get that done before the end of next month and give you a full list of what we're doing here in Connecticut. And I'll help you, Michelle, with the rest in the diaspora as well. Because I know Rhode Island has a great program. I know Andrew have a lot up there in Massachusetts. So we're gonna take initiative and get those done for him.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can get a couple of interns to work on that as well, and reach out to the various companies. But before Andrew, I'm gonna put you on the spot, just to share for 2 seconds about your trip from Grenada and the impact and what you're doing there. Just give you 2 seconds. Go
Thank
ahead,
you
Andrew.
guys so much, guys. I'm actually sitting in the airport, just came from Grenada. It was a delighted conference. My passion for Caribbean disability was so crucial that everyone in the room, over 19 Caribbean islands were in the room. All forms of disability was in the room. They felt in power. They felt their voices was being heard. And we came out with tangible, actionable items because we were happy for the Caribbean Development Disability, Caribbean Development Bank Disability Assessment and Report on the region disability community, which they had reached out to Jamaica, St. Lucia, Grenada, and Guyana, I think. No, Trinidad, sorry. And they spoke to a lot of persons across the region on inclusion, access, advocacy, and the Disability Act and laws. And we had a robust think tank groups. We divided persons into the various think tank groups. There was 5 of them: barriers to inclusion, advocacy and awareness, Disability Act and Human Rights Convention, mental health, and education and disaster preparedness. Out of those think tank groups came about with tangible success of short-term, medium, and long-term goals. And then we formulated a Caribbean Disability Network with all the key players across. I was so happy to see my Jamaican counterpart from the National Disability Association, which was in attendance. We heard a lot what's going on with them in Jamaica in retransforming the organization and pulling everybody together. We're happy that we started out, we did UK SIF, which is UK Aid, had a infrastructure project that fit into our field trip, where we traveled from the airport to the schools, to the cruise ship pier, to the village, to downtown to assess access. Are they accessible? How do a wheelchair get around? Is there signage? All of that, and just even speaking to the community to hear their response and how they feel about disability in their community. It was an amazing success.
I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah, man, they are so excited. These persons from, I mean, one prime example was a guy farmer. He was amputee, and he's still working in his farm. And he felt so empowered to be able to come and learn so much. They were refreshed. We heard from different, like for instance, St. Lucia doing prosthetic. Why is it not Jamaica doing it and other persons in the region? They're doing aquaponics also in St. Lucia. Why is it not done throughout the region? We talk about empowering, employing persons with disabilities. So I see a ray of hope. There is the light on the horizon for changes for persons with disability. And coming out of the conference was how we're going to work with the government for transformation and implementation. Because like, for instance, Jamaica has the Disability Act. There is many sectors that need to be trained how to deal with persons with disability. So coming out of it, the 3 great points moving forward: education inclusion. So every child should be having an education. We're moving away from these special needs schools. Yes, we're going to have them. Not everybody's going to fit into it, but inclusive education is the trust. all those child who are not having that channel should be in the classroom with the regular child, and every teacher should be trained on inclusive education. Another thing, addressing infrastructure, short term, you know, low hanging fruits, how we can make ramps and access by wheelchair. Even at the airport, there was a lot of flaws.
Okay.
One prime example, Michelle, you told me about is our new buildings, our new structure. How are we building them? Any one of us can be in a wheelchair now. We can get sick and we have to be put in a wheelchair and can't move around because we stuck because there's no access.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm so excited. I feel positive. The movement has begun, and it's a regional movement in not just Jamaica alone, but the whole Caribbean, moving for 2030 Sustainable Development Goal. And I'm really, really, really happy that it was a success. 200 persons with the endorsement of the Governor General of Grenada, who attended the closing dinner with us to acknowledge the importance of this conference. And thanks to those who made it online, because it was also hybrid. No one was left out.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, back to you, Mr. Longmore.
Thank you. Andrew, wonderful work as usual. And I think Stafford was also a part of it. So Stafford, go ahead. And I'll have one more question after that.
Yes.
Okay. We're doing good then.
Thank you. Mr. Distance, I catch some part of your the presentation, and the merger. You said that was a low point in the police force for them, the PSC and the POCA. I just wanted to really let us know: are there any intention to work harder to see if what are the plans to get them together, and what are the outputs you are expecting from having the merger of the PSC and POCA? And also, I didn't hear much about in your presentation about the ports under the consensus of crime. What are the implemented policies and things to really secure the ports? As you know, it is very porous. I was hoping to hear something from you on that too. And that's what I would like to hear from you.
Sure, Stafford, thanks again for that as well. The merger of the PSC, the Police Services Commission, and the PCOA, Police Civilian Oversight Authority, has been on the cards for several years, at least 6-7 years. So it was not just a matter of the consensus, it was on the cards from before. Again, a lot of it, there's some duplication of responsibilities. The view is that there's much more efficiency and effectiveness that can come from having these two bodies merged, sharing resources, and again, improved alignment in terms of the engagement with the police force, as well as overseeing what they do and the accountability that's necessary. It was, I believe it actually started under the previous PNP administration being discussed. Senator Bunting actually raised it in one of our meetings. And it continued to be a highlight item for this current government and administration. It just has not advanced. So discussions are there. It remains a priority. It remains on the priority list for the government. Let me not say priority. It remains on the list of things to be done for the government. But we have not gotten any recent update from them on it. And we continue to advocate and ask them to provide an update. If it's not a priority, then we only have the capacity to measure so many things at this point in time. So if it's not a priority, let's continue to flag it, but let's not spend too much time on this, because as you can see, there's so much more other things that we need to do, particularly on the social and cultural transformation component. Your second question was in relation to
the port.
The ports, right?
Yes,
so there's nothing specific in relation to the ports in the consensus. One of the areas that we spent a lot of time on in our meetings with the police force, 2021, 2022, we spent a lot of time on the firearms, illegal firearms coming into the island and initiatives surrounding that. There were 20 initiatives. I was looking at the numbers today that the government that the security forces, because it's a combination of the JDF, the Coast Guard, a few other entities, as well as the Constabulary Force, and of course the Customs Agency, in terms of tracking what's coming through the ports. So we are getting some data. We had gotten some data in a report. Again, the last report was in 2022 in terms of what's being implemented and the progress there. But I don't have any additional information at this point in time because it has not been one of the focal areas for our attention at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. That was from Mr. Stafford. And oh wow, you put some great information in here. One more questions for you, Mr. Distance. Stay right there. Mr. Fortune says, can we invite the directors of each crime reduction program so we can hear from them directly and hear their challenges and successes?
If that's a question for me, I think absolutely you can. I think you would probably need to do it as a series because each one of them could come and spend a couple of hours just talking about the programs, initiatives, the challenges and opportunities in their area. But I'm happy to facilitate, provide you with some names and suggestions for persons you may want to bring on to speak about what's happening in their portfolios. Happy to share that.
No problem.
Donovan, if you mind, Donovan, to that question there that I'm very interested, person asking about the lead of the crime. We'll be having on the next sector, that is November 7th, of the part 2 of this same program here. We will be having the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr.
Richard Stewart.
Stewart. He is the top cop that replaces Mr. Fitz Bailey, and he have already accepted to come and speak to the diaspora about it. So tune in again for next month and you will hear from him.
All right. Before we go, I would like to invite this lady on. I saw her or him coming on earlier. iPhone Mina La Fortune. Would you unmute and come on, please? Because I have something I want to ask you. She gave some great information about prosthetics in Kenya and also asked, does anyone know what is the vetting process done for persons who sold visas to become Jamaican citizens? So that probably has to do with some immigration person. But if you're available to speak, please unmute.
How do I do this now?
I'm hearing you.
You can hear me?
Mina.
Okay,
Yes.
hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
I'm not camera ready.
That's all right.
Okay, there's two things I just wanted to my name is Mina Hamilton LaFortune. I'm also the president of Society for the Advancement of the Caribbean Diaspora. And so that's one hat. I'm also a recording artist. That's hat number 2. I'm a wife and I'm just a regular person. So one of the things I wanted to comment on was the coding program. The coding program is very critical because it's not just getting into advanced courses, but it also helps students to become part of robotic teams that compete nationally, internationally, but most essentially, they learn how to work together. Everyone does a specific task and it's a team approach, and which is the new paradigm for employees. So if we are not teaching, we're not just teaching coding. The children are being taught how to work together as a team, how to respect each other, and how to produce together. So it has far-reaching implication and help them to develop life skills. Additionally, I want to touch on someone mentioned developing a database, but it also would be helpful if we do develop a matrix so we can see what the programs are in play, what is happening, and how people can become, attached to them, get involved with them, and what resources they need so that people can provide help. If we don't, if the diaspora don't know they cannot participate. If you're not showing us what you're doing, because I'm a part of the diaspora, I talk to people within the diaspora, and I would say like 90% of the diaspora don't know about what we are doing. I can't speak very strongly on that. So if we are not communicating, okay, and crime is very, very, very important topic within the diaspora. And this is a very important meeting. But if the information is not distributed so that people can have access to it, they are not going to get involved in it. And I can tell you the diaspora wants to be involved because everybody wants to go home. Everybody wants to go home. Nobody wants to really stay here and not have an option, especially these days. Okay, so it is important that we share information on Facebook, wherever the diaspora is. We have to reach out to them and give them the information that they can also give back and help to improve all the work, that hard work that you guys are doing. Because this is some very hard work. And you guys are to be commended on what you're doing. Okay. So I just wanted to jump in and say that, and to encourage your spirit, because government can't do everything, and running a program like this is heavy lifting. And I commend every one of you, for giving up your time, your technical knowledge, every minute that you spend doing this kind of work. It's commendable, and you should be proud of yourselves. But I think the information needs to trickle down. Wherever diaspora live, shop, whatever, get that information out, because they want to know, and they want to participate, and they want to help. And they will contribute if they understand what is happening. It's not that the community don't want to help. As long as they understand this is for the good, and this is going to change someone's life, it's going to bring about positive change, they will help. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well said. Thank you very much. And of course, we need your information as well, because
Michelle knows how to
I
reach
never heard
me.
of you before, but you are excellent. Make sure
Michelle
you
knows
and
how
Andrew.
to reach me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. Make sure
you.
you and Andrew link. One more thing I will say to that, Mina, is the fact that the information is out there. But I will say this, especially with my people, interest is the soil in which knowledge and intelligence grow. They have to know what they want, and they have to take the interest in order to know what it does. We've been working so hard. Look what Andrew is doing. Look what Michelle is doing. Look what you're doing. Don't tell me that people don't know. They know, but it's the interest that they have in it. So another thing, I'm a media personality, so send me your music.
Okay. I guess it was worth coming on tonight. Okay.
Utilize that platform. I'm on the radio, so utilize that platform. Before we go,
I get your information from Michelle.
I got two more.
Thank you.
I got two more. Melissa and Dean. Dean, go ahead. You had your hand up first.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Sorry to be a little bit late. I was listening, but really appreciate it. And I just want to do a quick just to follow up with what our last speaker said, and I would like the sense of security person to, what I'm about to say, I would like this to be going straight to the government of Jamaica and the security minister, because I don't get a chance to talk much when these people come on the platform. So,
but we're not the government.
no, man, but I have been the diaspora. I've been working in the Augustown era for the past 4 years. I have been hosting all these meetings, and the crime, if you look at the statistic with the crime rate in Augustown, the security sector of the diaspora, myself, Stafford, Donovan, we have been hosting all these programs in Augustown, and crime has reduced to, like, I would say 95% of programs that we have been doing in that community. If you look at Augustown for the past 5 years, every first and second Sunday, I host the CDC meetings, all these community meetings, and I just want it to be noted that the diaspora is doing this program. We launch Let's Talk on the Reggae Tree. The head office is in Augustown, and we have kids who have lost their parents, and they have been so interested. Every Tuesday they're on it. We have really done a lot of intervention program in the community. So I just want to give my little 5 cents, and I want to be recorded and get to the relevant authority that the Northeast diaspora, strong, active, the security sector. Right, Stafford?
Yes, yes, sure. Under this leadership, come on now. We are
Yeah,
working
man.
on it.
Yeah, man. Under the leadership of Stafford. So anywhere Dean go,
That Miss
remember, I am a part of the Northeast. So once I'm
Miss
there,
Michelle is doing a wonderful job guiding us through it
yeah, man.
and
Thank
helping
you
us.
very much, Anjo. Thank all of you for your support, all the team. I really, sometimes I'm out there and I tell you, man, without your support, it has been tremendous, and we have make a great impact. Because when I used to remember before, every weekend 3-4 man used to drop down, shoot all these shootings and killing. Now that it's stable, and why people don't ask what have we been doing, and these are some of the things that we have been very active in the community that has intervention programs, and that's what we are about. All right, thank you very much.
All right, Dean, thank you. One more and then we get to Brenton. Melissa Smith mentioned one central diaspora organization with many branches in the varying states could help with logistics and data on the varying programming, which is true. Right now, there are too many fragments. That's what she meant to say. Too many fragments. Well, I mean, like Melissa, like we said, we're working on it, and yes, everybody has different program that they work, but they are needed. That's one thing about it. They are needed. So we're like Andrew said, get that matrix together, get the data together, and put everything in order. So we're here, not to tear each other down, but to build with one another, because we're doing too much. Everybody here has family, work, and all kinds of involvement in the community. So we're trying to put together things in various avenues where we can help our country, because that's what it's all about. As diasporans, we want to help our people and see them advance and do some great stuff. We're still working on the Hurricane Beryl situation, and so many people were involved, and it's going left and right. But at the same time, we're just trying. So Melissa, we thank you for that, and we're gonna move forward. And Brenton, haven't heard from you in a while, man. How you been? Go ahead, sir.
You're muted, Brenton.
Brenton, can't
You're
hear you.
muted. All right, let me unmute him then. I can't even unmute him.
Hold on. Let me
Are you hearing me now?
Yeah, we're hearing you now.
Oh, I said I'm under the weather a little bit also, man, but still hanging on in there. One, crime pays. And crime is something that in Jamaica it can solve very easily. If you notice, most of the cops, they have security firms. And the reason why they have the security firms, after they pay to hype up the crime, you have to go and pay them to secure your own place. So we just have to nip that in the bud, because politicians know all these bad men. And they can take control of all this crime that is happening in Jamaica. And as a fact, I know that for sure. So it's a place that I know I want to go back to. I love my country. When I'm in Jamaica, I eat better. In America, a lot of people don't even talk about it. But here in this country, they eat off stuff that they put in the food to give us to get sick, so you can continue to pay your doctor bill. In Jamaica, you plant stuff in your yard, or you go to the farmer and buy stuff, which is much healthier. So I just say crime pays, and they just need to curb the crime. So, we don't have to be on a blacklist, because I realize we're on a blacklist and nobody say anything about the blacklist that we're on, what the US put us on. And that's something need to address also. And top of the night, and you need to give me a call, sir. We need to talk ASAP. My studio almost finished building, sir.
All right, so we'll do that.
All right.
All right, well,
I'm building a recording studio. So.
Yeah, man, no problem. Put it in perspective. crime is a business. That's what you meant to say. It's a business, and we know.
Yes.
We know.
Yes.
So we will discuss that at another time because again, this was certainly consensus on crime. We'll jump into some other areas, but everybody in here have great input and want to see better for our country, want to see better for our people, want to see better for the diaspora. So again, we work together, and like Andrew said, the data has to come together where we can know who is doing what rather than trying to create something again that's already been there. So thank you guys so much. Michelle, our fearless leader, back over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very, very much for everyone that who participated. There are so many people that came on in the latter part that I didn't give a shout out to, as they would say. But I thank you for your presence. I thank you for your contribution. I thank you for just giving us ideas and to look at this from a different perspective. I do hope that, Mr. Diston, that you have enough information to walk away with, so that when we come back next month, you can say, okay, this is what we can add to what was being said. So I hope we were able to help you, Mr. Distant, as you continue this project, because as we all said, we are looking for crime to be zero, which is not possible. But we can also learn from you as well, because we have crime problems here in the US. So we don't want to seem as if Jamaica is the only place with crime. We are struggling here as well. So what I want to do later on is also bring on some police officers from the US to talk to police officers in Jamaica, and maybe the community ones, so we can learn from each other. But it was great information. Dr. Grant, thank you always for your input and your thought-provoking ideas to get us thinking about this from a broader perspective and what we can do in various areas. So I thank you. And I thank each and every one of you for your contribution tonight. I thank you for taking time out of your busy night just to be here, to be part of this great conversation. With that being said, we're gonna start or we end, and that's always with prayer. And I am looking for Reverend Nielsen. I think he left. But
he did?
Michelle, can I just add something to you?
Yes,
before,
my co-chair, my co-host.
I'm sorry, that's a break. Yes, we just want to let everyone know that part 2 will be on November 7th. And I just want to quickly acknowledge, and I really appreciate you coming on, our secretary for the Jamaica chapter, Miss Murray. And I also see Mr. Trevor Smith. I think he came on late.
No, Trevor was on.
I want him was to say they are part of the questionnaire from Mr. Distant. But anyway, we'll be looking forward for the next session. And as Miss iPhone, what's her name? The lady with iPhone?
Miss La Fortune.
She said the diaspora, the community need to know more to get information. Here it is. We are asking you to do the work for us too, to let them know that we'll be on, and we're expecting a lot more to put their voices out there come November 7th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sharon Musing? Sharon, are you still on? Sharon, are you on still? Hi, Claudette. Thank you for coming. All right. With that being...
she just answered.
Great program.
All right. Thank you, Claudette. Thank you. And Claudette has a forum coming up at the end of the month, so that you'll get more information on that. That will be on October 30th. Okay, so since I cannot find...
I'll pray for you, Mish.
Okay, then.
Okay,
go ahead, Brenton.
Hold on, Brenton. Hold on. Mina, is that a book on... She put something in the chat, A Savage
Each
Order?
person should read a book, A Savage Order. I don't see...
The deadliest country, how the world deadliest countries can forge a path to security.
Okay.
Where is she? She's still on, right? She just
I think so, yeah.
All right, Mina. I guess it's available on Amazon, I think, or I just wanted you to say something about it, but
yes, it's a very interesting book. I think each person should read it because it's empowering, and it will give deeper insight on how we should tackle this monster that we have in our society.
Okay. I put my radio information on there, so send me a song them, or Michelle can send it to me.
Well, yeah. So just give Michelle your information and I'll reach out.
She already
to
have it.
Okay, fine. I'll reach out to Michelle and then
Okay.
I'll take it from there.
Okay. All right,
Sounds
Mr.
good.
Brenton.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks to pulling us together to discuss the earthly security issue. And Father, you see and you know everything that we have been through, the sick, the poor, the needy. We're asking you to touch each and every one on this line now, dear Lord. Help them to be an example to you and to teach others that the word is love. And if we love each other, we will take care of each other. We won't be mean. So continue to bless and guide us. In thy name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.
And
Hey,
also,
Kevin
guys,
Boy,
don't
thank you
forget.
for coming on. Sorry.
Don't forget to they're saying that there's another hurricane or something coming in Nadine towards the Caribbean. So let's pray for Jamaica and the other islands as well. So
And the truck is headed to the US too.
It's coming to the US.
Yes.
Yes, there's some other
Well,
here.